Here's a number that should scare you more than any recession, any layoff, any market crash. The average person making a solid, respectable salary for 30 straight years retires with almost nothing to show for it. Not because they were lazy, not because they didn't work hard, because they made 6 specific decisions that felt like progress and were actually chains. And I've watched it happen up close over and over for longer than I care to admit. I built companies from nothing. I've sold one for more money than I ever thought I'd see in my life. I've sat behind a desk on national television and listened to thousands of people pitch me their businesses, their dreams, their life savings on the line. And here's the pattern I noticed after doing that long enough. The people who struggle financially aren't usually the ones taking wild risks. It's the opposite. It's the people doing everything right. Buying the reliable car, getting the safe degree, buying the insurance policy their uncle sold them. Those are the ones stuck, and nobody's told them why. Because the people selling them these things make a living off them staying confused. So today I'm going to break down the 6 purchases that quietly wreck working people's finances, dressed up as smart moves. I'm going to show you the actual math behind each one, not the sales pitch math, the real math. And then I'm going to tell you what actually builds wealth, because ripping something apart without giving you something better is just noise. And I don't do noise. Let's start with the environment you're operating in, because this matters. When you're living paycheck to paycheck or close to it, you're stuck in what I call the treadmill. Money comes in, money goes out, and the gap between those two numbers, that little sliver left over, that's the only thing that can ever make you free. If that gap is small, you're not slowly falling behind. You're getting pulled backward the same way gravity pulls a ball off a table. It's not gradual, it's constant. And the 6 things I'm about to walk you through are specifically designed, whether the people selling them realize it or not, to keep that gap at 0 forever. First one, the new car. I get it. I do. Your old car's breaking down. It's costing you in repairs. You're missing work because it won't start. And someone tells you a reliable car protects your income. That sounds completely reasonable. It is completely reasonable. And it's also a trap, because here's what nobody tells you standing on that dealership lot. The second you drive that car off the lot, it loses somewhere around 15 to 20% of its value. Not next year. That same afternoon, you just handed over thousands of dollars for nothing but the privilege of being first. Within 5 years, that car's lost somewhere between 40 and 60% of what you paid for it. Meanwhile, if you'd taken that same money and put it into a basic index fund, historically, it would have grown by 30, 40, 50% instead of collapsing. Do that math on a $30,000 car, and you're looking at a $50,000 to $70,000 swing over 10 years. That's not a car. That's a decade of your life bought back. I've owned nice cars, don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you to suffer, but I bought them after I built real wealth, not as a way to fake it. There's a difference between owning something because you can and buying something because you need people to think you already made it. One of those is fine. The other one is expensive theater, and you're paying monthly for the show. And before you tell me you need the new car for reliability, ask yourself the real question, because I ask this about every deal that ever crosses my desk. Who is this purchase actually for? If it's for your income, a 5-year-old car with low miles and a clean maintenance history does the exact same job for half the price or less. If it's for the feeling of pulling up somewhere and having people notice, that's not an investment. That's a costume. And costumes cost you every single month, whether you're wearing them or not. Second one, and this one's sneakier because it's wrapped in love for your family, whole life insurance. The pitch sounds airtight. You need life insurance anyway, so why not get one that also builds cash value, so your money's working for you while it protects your family? Sounds smart. Here's the problem. When you break down where your premium actually goes, a chunk of it covers the real insurance, and the rest goes into an account that grows at maybe 1 to 3% a year. 1 to 3%. While inflation's eating 3 to 4% a year, while a basic stock market investment has historically returned somewhere around 9 to 11% over the long run. You're being sold a rowboat and told it's a yacht, and it gets worse if you die. In most policies, your family gets the death benefit, not the death benefit plus all that cash value you spent years building. The insurance company keeps it. You built up a savings account inside their house, and when it's over, they keep the house and the money. I'm not saying cancel your policy tomorrow if you have one. There are tax details and penalties to consider. So go sit down with an advisor who gets paid a flat fee, not a commission, and have them run the real numbers next to a basic term policy plus index fund combo. The math will tell you everything the sales pitch never did. I want to say something about the people who sell whole life policies, because I don't think they're crooks. Most of them genuinely believe they're helping you, but the commission on that product is one of the fattest in the entire financial industry. So the incentive to push it on you is baked into the system itself. But that's the part people miss. This isn't some backroom conspiracy where guys in suits are plotting against working families. It's just math quietly working against you, dressed up as care. Third trap, and this one I take personally because I believe in learning more than almost anything else in the world. The credential that doesn't pay for itself. Learning is not the trap. Curiosity is not the trap. What's the trap is an 18-year-old kid being told there's only one path, taking on 80 or 100 grand in debt for a degree and walking out into a job that pays 40,000 a year. Now they're paying that loan back at 6 or 7% interest for the next 15 years, while their friend who learned a trade or picked up a coding certificate or just started grinding on a small business is putting that same money to work, compounding at 9 or 10%. That gap over 20 years is hundreds of thousands of dollars. But here's the part that really gets me. The debt doesn't just cost you money, it costs you options. And when you owe that much, you can't afford to quit a job you hate. You can't afford to take the swing on the idea you actually believe in. The debt buys your obedience. I've sat across the table from more brilliant, self-taught people than I can count. People who never finished a degree and built real profitable businesses because they went and learned exactly what they needed when they needed it for close to nothing. Using the internet, using books, using the job itself as the classroom. I'm not telling you to skip college if you want to be a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer. Those fields need the license. The license is the product. But if you're about to sign for 6 figures of debt, ask yourself the real question. What does this specific degree actually pay in this specific field after this specific cost? Not the dream version, the real one. Both paths deserve respect. A nurse and a philosopher are both doing something worthwhile with their life. I mean that, but only one of those specific financial calculations pencils out on paper. And pretending otherwise because it feels harsh to say out loud doesn't change the bank statement waiting for that kid 10 years later. So run the actual numbers before you sign. Median starting pay in that exact field, total debt at graduation, monthly payment at that interest rate, years to break even. If those numbers don't work, there's nothing shameful about building your knowledge a different way and saving the license. For the handful of fields that truly require one fourth trap. And I've watched this one wreck more people in the last 10 years than almost anything else, the fast money game. This is crypto pumps, meme stocks, options trading groups on your phone. Whatever the flavor of the month is, here's who falls for this. Someone smart, someone motivated, who does the actual math on their savings rate and realizes that grinding it out slow and steady is going to take them 30 years to get free. And 30 years feels like forever when you're staring at your bank account tonight. So they go looking for faster, and faster is always for sale. It's always got a community around it, a group chat, a guy on social media who turned 5 grand into 50 grand and can't stop talking about it. Here's the truth about that game. When an asset spikes fast, it's usually because the people buying late are funding the profits of the people who got in early. It's not really investing. It's a transfer of money from the impatient to the patient, dressed up in the language of the future. I built and sold real businesses. I know the difference between putting money into something because you understand the mechanics behind why it will grow and putting money into something because everyone in your feed is hyped about it. If the strategy needs your attention and your excitement to work, that's a product being sold to you. If it needs your money to actually go build or own something real, that's an investment. Slow, boring index fund investing has made more ordinary people millionaires than every hot trend of the last 50 years combined, and it never trends on anybody's feed because patience doesn't make good content. It just makes you rich quietly over time. I've seen this exact story play out in businesses too, not just trading apps. Somebody pitches me on a company built entirely around hype instead of a real product, no actual demand underneath it. Just momentum and a good story, and I pass every single time. Because momentum isn't a business model, it's a countdown clock. The same rule applies to your personal money. If you can't explain in one clear sentence why the value is real, you don't own an investment, you own a story, and stories don't pay your bills once the room stops clapping. Fifth trap. The rental property that's actually bleeding you dry every month while you tell people at parties you're a landlord. Now, real estate can absolutely build wealth. I've made real money in it myself. I'm not knocking the asset class. What I'm knocking is the way regular working people get talked into buying a property with a small down payment they work years to save based on numbers a real estate agent ran for them that only show the mortgage against the rent. What doesn't show up on that sheet? Property tax. Insurance that runs higher on a rental, the months it sits empty between tenants, repairs on an older property that always cost more than you think, a property manager eating 10% of your rent if you're not doing it yourself, and the money you need sitting in reserve for when the roof or the water heater decides today's the day. Run the real numbers, the honest numbers, and a huge chunk of first-time rental purchases are actually losing money every single month. The owner isn't getting paid by the property. The owner's paying the property plus fielding calls at 11 at night about a broken pipe, plus dealing with a tenant who stopped paying and calling it passive income. That's not passive. That's a second unpaid job with a mortgage attached. And the question you've got to ask is the same question I ask about any business that crosses my desk. Is this thing generating cash or is it eating it? If it's eating cash every month and you're just hoping the value goes up enough years from now to make up for it, that's not an investment. That's a bet with really good marketing. I'm not telling you real estate is bad. Some of my own money sits in property right now and it's been good to me. What I'm telling you is that owning real estate the right way takes real knowledge of the market you're buying in, a real understanding of what things actually cost to maintain, and a real willingness to treat it like the business it is instead of a trophy you get to mention at Thanksgiving. Buy it, because the numbers work with all the true costs included. Not because owning something you can drive past makes you feel like you've arrived somewhere. Sixth one. And this is the one almost nobody names, because it doesn't feel like a single decision. It feels like your whole life. Lifestyle creep. You get a raise, and within a few months, your spending quietly catches up to match it. Bigger apartment, better restaurants, nicer car, more subscriptions, another raise comes. The cycle repeats. No single purchase in that chain feels reckless. Each one feels completely reasonable in the moment, but added up over 15 years and your income doubled while your savings rate never actually moved. This one gets you because of how your brain works. You buy the nicer thing. You feel great for a few weeks, then it becomes your new normal, invisible, and you need the next upgrade just to feel that same spark again. Your brain genuinely cannot tell the difference between actually building wealth and just looking like you're building wealth. Every wealthy person I know who's actually wealthy, not just looks wealthy, has one thing in common. Their spending grew a lot slower than their income. That gap between what came in and what went out is the only thing that ever compounds into real freedom. The people stuck on the treadmill. No matter how much they spend every raise before it even lands. I've been called cheap plenty of times by people who had a fraction of what I had because I didn't need to prove anything with a car or a boat. Once you own the boat, you own the marina fees, the crew, the maintenance, and the identity of a guy who needs a boat to feel like himself. That identity is the most expensive subscription you'll ever sign up for, and it renews automatically every single month. There's a version of this trap that's even sneakier, and it's the social side of it. When your income goes up, the people around you notice, even if nobody says it out loud. The group trip gets pricier. The gift expectations at weddings and birthdays creep up. The restaurant where you meet your friends changes without anybody voting on it. You end up paying membership dues on a social tier, and those dues rise automatically the second your paycheck does, unless you make the uncomfortable decision to just opt out and live a little below where you could technically afford. I've been called cheap plenty by people who couldn't touch my net worth, and I've made peace with that a long time ago. Because the yacht was never the goal. The yacht is just the last stop before the airport. And once you own it, you own the crew and the fuel and the identity that comes attached to it too. So now you've seen all six: the new car that costs you the second you drive it home, the insurance policy that locks your own money in someone else's vault, the degree that buys your obedience instead of your freedom, the fast money game that's really just other people's losses, funding someone else's highlight reel, the rental property quietly draining your bank account while you call yourself a landlord, and the lifestyle creep that eats every raise before you even notice it's gone. None of the people who sold you these things are villains. Most of them believe in what they're selling. That's actually what makes it dangerous. It's not a conspiracy, it's just math working against you while everyone smiles and shakes your hand. Now let me tell you what actually works, because tearing things down without building something up is a waste of everybody's time. Real wealth building, the kind that actually sets people free, has three things going for it every single time. It makes you money without needing you to keep grinding for every dollar. The downside is limited, and you understand it before you ever put a dollar in. And you could explain exactly how it makes money to a total stranger without stumbling. That's it. That's the whole filter by that filter. Here's what actually works. Low-cost index funds, boring as they sound, buying a tiny slice of thousands of real businesses automatically through your paycheck, cheap fees, and just leaving it alone for decades. It's not exciting. Nobody's making a documentary about it, but it's produced more everyday millionaires than every hot trend combined, because it just quietly compounds while you live your life. Second, invest in your own skills, but do it like an investor, not like it's obligatory. Find the one specific thing you're underpaid for relative to what the market actually pays for it, and go close that gap cheap and fast if you can. I spent $100 on a communication course early in my career, and it's paid me back more than almost any single stock I've ever bought, because communication was my actual bottleneck, not some vague idea of self-improvement. Third, start something. Doesn't have to be huge. A real business, solving a real problem for real people who'll actually pay for it. Start it on the side while you're still collecting a paycheck. Keep your cost at basically zero until the thing proves itself with actual customers paying actual money. That's how nearly every durable business I've ever seen got built. Not with a huge loan and a leap of faith, but with proof first, scale second. And here's the question I want you sitting with after this video ends. Are you trying to look rich, or are you trying to actually be free? Because those are not the same goal, and chasing the wrong one is exactly how good hardworking people end up broke at 60 despite doing everything they were told was responsible. Looking rich needs an audience. It needs a bigger car next year, a bigger house after that. Always one purchase away from feeling like you've made it, except that feeling never actually arrives because the finish line keeps moving with your spending. Being free asks one question and one question only. Can what you own generate enough to cover your life without you having to sell another hour of your time to get it? The day you can honestly answer yes to that question is the day you stop working because you have to and start working only when you want to. That's the whole game. Everything else is decoration. I'm not telling you to live like a monk and skip every nice thing forever. That's not the point, and it never was. I'm telling you to stop paying full price for the performance of success when the real thing is actually cheaper and available to you starting today. Look at your own life honestly. Which of these six is quietly draining you right now? Maybe it's the car. Maybe it's the policy sitting in a drawer you haven't looked at in years. Maybe it's the raise that vanished into a slightly better apartment before you even noticed. Whatever it is, you can't fix what you won't name. And now you know exactly what to name. Drop a comment and tell me which one of these six hits closest to home for you. I actually read them. If you know somebody grinding hard at a good job and still feeling stuck, do them a favor and send them this video. It might be the one thing that changes how they see their next paycheck. And if you want more breakdowns like this, real numbers, no fluff, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Put the chain down. Go build something real. That's it for today.